is Nurul Najwa binti MAHARUDDIN and my metric number is 280675. So I will be presenting about the history of development of activity-based costing and the evolution. Until 1970, internal costing methods were relatively basic. Single allocation pools that were usually based on the amount of time involving direct labor or machine labor to determine the amount to allocate to overhead were used. Because of this, companies use either variable costing or absorption costing. In addition, with the increase in range of products produced and increase in non-volume related support activities due to the use of advanced manufacturing technology such as setup, production scheduling, inspection, and data processing. These support activities assist the efficient manufacture of a wide range of products and are not in general affected by changes in production volume. They tend to vary in the long term according to the range and complexity of the products manufactured rather than the volume of output. As a result, using traditional absorption costing will tend to over-allocate overhead costs to high-volume products and under-allocate overhead to low-volume products with high complexity of production involving more support activities. Moreover, managers needed a more accurate way to track revenues and expenses and identify non-financial factors for the amount financial statement and records show. Therefore, activity-based costing was developed to attempt to overcome this problem. Activity-based costing, or known as ABC, is a system that goes beyond traditional cost-price models with respect to indirect cost calculation models. This method was developed in the United States and was first introduced in the manufacturing industry to solve the problems of traditional cost-price calculation. In the 1980s, Robin Cooper and Robert Kaplan wrote numerous articles about ABC to widen the use of this approach. Unlike traditional cost-price systems, activity-based costing established a causal link between the cost drivers and indirect costs. By passing on this insight to the responsible cost drivers, a transparent and cost-conscious conduct is stimulated. ABC identifies cost groups of activity centers in organizations and allocates costs to products and services based on a number of events or transactions that are absolutely necessary in the process to deliver the product or service. There are 5 steps to follow in allocating, calculating, and reporting the cost under ABC. These steps include determining cost pools and measures. Managers need to decide the fundamental activities that drive the cost, and every activity has to have an in-depth analysis. Next is assigning costs to the pools. Managers will assign the cost to the cost pools they belong in. If a company has a large number of activities it must perform, the number of cost drivers also rises. The third step is calculating rates. Dividing the cost assigned to each cost pool by the cost base for each pool will give us the rate that are often used for costs at the product level and at the customer level. Next is assigning cost to the cost objects. Managers need to assign the cost to cost objects such as products and customers. This stage is also known as second stage allocation. Costs are normally assigned either by unit, batch, product, or customers. The last step is writing reports. Managerial accountant needs to write the reports so that managers can efficiently determine the cost of each activity in production. These reports usually relate to the profitability of either products or customers. Activity-based costing has gone through various evolutions in order to be implemented widely. The latest evolution of ABC is the time-driven activity-based approach. The conventional ABC system needs to be updated frequently as things change and simple ABC models do not capture the complexity of actual operations. Another more serious problem is that employees tend to assign 100% of their time to the activities they perform, ignoring idle or unused time. This causes the cost driver rates to be overstated and reduces the accuracy of the cost assignments. The new time-driven activity-based approach is simpler, cheaper, and more powerful than the conventional ABC model. It eliminates the need to interview or survey employees to allocate resource cost activities before assigning them to cost objects. In the new time-driven ABC, resource costs are assigned directly to cost objects that only require 2 sets of estimates. These include an estimate of the capacity cost rate and estimate of the capacity consumption. Time-driven ABC seems complex to implement, but it will become simple and serve a valuable purpose once implemented because managers use equations based on time. In addition, economies change rather dramatically, so it is reasonable to start using time-driven ABC. Because time-driven ABC is ultimately simple to use due to the changing business environment, it is especially useful in flexible budgeting.
Hi, my name is Farhan bin Muhammad Nizam with the number matrix of 280143, and now I'm going to present about the difference between activity-based costing ABC and traditional costing. To put it simply, ABC or activity-based costing is a method to assign overhead costs or indirect costs to the related products or services based on activities they require. So for example, if the certain products or service require let's say inspection hours, then we're going to assign the inspection hours to the products or services. Secondly is traditional costing. Now, traditional costing is a method that they used to assign direct material and direct labor using direct tracing, while the overhead they use two allocation method, which is plant-wide overhead rate and also departmental overhead rate. Plant-wide overhead rate means that they only have one rate to use for all of their department, while departmental rate means that they have different rate on each department. Now, traditional costing may distort the product cost. This means that they may give false information or it may be incorrect. This is because the traditional costing they only use unit-based driver to calculate. The non-unit-based driver is not considered in the calculation. For example, the unit-based driver means that the demand placed on unit-level activities by products. This means that they calculate it for each unit. For example, 1 unit of product, they calculate the direct labor hours, or they calculate the machine hours, so they bring it down to how many each unit. Meanwhile, for the non-unit based driver, it means that the demands that cost object placed on activities. This means that they calculate it not on how many 1 unit, but they calculate it on the activities. For example, they need to do inspection, so they calculate on that activities, the inspection activities, and then they calculate the inspection hours. So next we are going to see the difference between ABC and also traditional costing method. The first one is assigning cost to products. So for ABC method, they assign both manufacturing and also non-manufacturing costs to products. So for example, they can assign non-manufacturing costs such as sales commission or repair costs to their products if needed. Meanwhile, traditional costing, they only assign manufacturing costs to their products or services. Next is the assigning of manufacturing costs to the products. So for ABC method, they only assign some of the manufacturing costs to their products. This is because that they only assign the cost that will bring a change to the cost. If the manufacturing cost will not change the cost, then it will not be assigned or it will not be included. Meanwhile, traditional costing, they assign all manufacturing costs to their products, regardless if it will change the cost or not. Third one is cost pool. So for ABC method, they have more cost pool to use and also have their own unique measures of activity. This is because that the total number of cost pool in the ABC is more than one, and is also more likely to exceed the total number of departments in a company. The number of activities being done in a single department is also a lot. So meanwhile, in traditional costing, they only have a single cost pool, and they also usually rely on volume measures. Volume measures means that like for example direct labor hours and machine hours. Number 4 is allocation based. So for ABC method, they have more they use more allocation bases, where they not only use volume measures, but they also use other bases that does not relate to the volume of production. So meanwhile, traditional costing, for allocation based, they usually rely on the volume measures, where like as said in earlier, volume measures is, for example, like direct labor hours or machine hours. But the most commonly used allocation base for traditional costing is the direct labor hours. But however, the using of direct labor hours has two problems, where number one is that in many cases or in many process, where if overhead is increasing, the direct labor is decreasing. So we can see this in if a company use more machine power rather than direct labor, where if the overhead increase, the direct labor cost per hour decrease because they use machines. So number 2 is that the variety and also the complex of product is increasing, so it becomes harder. So lastly is the level of activity. So for ABC method, the level of activity is based on the capacity of activity. So if there is like unused capacity, they will not calculate it, they will not assign it, and it will be treated as period expense. Meanwhile, traditional method, they use budgeted activity. The problem with using the budgeted activity is that whether the capacity is used or the capacity of activity is unused, they will all be included in products. So this will result in the increasing of product cost, and as said earlier, it will distort the product cost, where it is false information or incorrect information. So in conclusion, the ABC method is the better method compared to traditional costing, because ABC method produces a more accurate cost compared to traditional costing. But ABC method is more complex to use, is more complex to design compared to traditional costing. So that is all from me. Thank you.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad IZZWAN HAFIZ bin AZHAR. My matric number is 280168. Okay, today I want to present about benefit and advantage of using activity-based costing, which is we call it as simple form is a ABC. Okay, let's go. So we go for the benefit of activity-based costing. So what are the benefit if we using activity-based costing? So the first one benefit is enables effective planning. So the point is is extremely beneficial for people involved in the cost lowering and process improvement programs. To using activity-based costing, all the activities that form a certain process are going to accounted for accurately. For instance, in firms that offer financial service, it is going to possible to determine accurately the expense of the average activity utilized in processing loan application from inputting data on the application to the final approval. And this enable the firm to figure out which is the less or as the most expensive part of such a process. And so the second one benefit of the activity based cost is it can reduce risk. So since activity based cost costing mainly focus on the process instead of the structure, it help a firm to lower its risk. This means that organization should only keep the activity that increase the value of product and remove activity that fail to complement the product, and this action lower business risk significantly. Okay, that's the second point. Okay, for last benefit of using activity-based costing, so it can enable customization, we call it. So when accurately assessing the expense of service and product, activity-based cost can easily establish the profitability of individual service and product. This is particularly useful in the current economy, where organizations are increasing attempting to differentiate as well as personalize both service and product. So, activity-based costing therefore enable organizations to customize their output to individual requirement. Okay, that's it for benefit activity-based costing. Okay, so we go to the advantage if we using activity-based cost. So what is the advantage if you using activity-based costing? Okay, so we go to the first advantage. So the first advantage if using activity-based cost is an accurate product cost. Activity-based costing brings accuracy and reliability in product cost determination by focusing on cause and effect relationship in the cost incurrence. It recognizes that activities which cause cost, not product, and is a product which consume activities. It advanced manufacturing environment and technology where support function overhead constitute a large share of total cost. Activity-based cost provides more realistic product costs. Okay, so the second advantage of using activity-based cost is information that we can know information about cost behavior. Activity-based cost identify the real nature of cost behavior and helps in reducing cost and identifying activities which do not add value to your product. With activity-based cost, managers are able to control many fixed overhead costs by exercising more control over activities which have caused these fixed overhead costs. This is possible since behavior of many fixed overhead costs in relation to activities now become more visible and more clear. Okay, that's it. Okay, so the third advantage of using activity based cost is that it can tracing of activities for the cost object. Okay, activity based cost use multiply cost drivers, many of which are transaction based rather than produce volume. Further, activity based cost is concerned with all activities within the beyond the factory to trace more overhead to the product. Okay, so the fourth advantage of activity based cost is a can tracing of overhead cost. Activity based costing trace cost to area of managerial responsibility, process, customer, department beside the product cost. Okay, let's go. Okay, so we continue on advantage of using activity based cost. Okay, so If we using activity-based cost, it can make a better decision making. Activity-based cost improve greatly the manager's decision making as they can use more reliable product cost data. Activity-based cost help usefully in fixing selling price of product as more correct data of product cost is now readily available. Okay, so the last point of advantage of activity-based cost is a cost management. Activity-based cost provides cost driver rates and information on transaction volume which are very useful to management for cost management and perform appraisal of responsibility centers. Cost driver rates can be used advantageously for the design of new product or existing product as they indicate overhead costs that are likely to be applied in costing the product. Okay, so this is the last part of the advantage. Thank you so much. Okay.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is AMIR bin YUSOF. My metric number is 280711 and I will be talking about the limitations of activity-based costing or ABC. Before I explain about the limitations of activity-based costing, let us see what is the meaning of activity-based costing or also known as ABC. Activity-based costing is a costing method that identifies activities in an organization and assigns the cost of each activity to all products and services according to the actual consumption by each. Therefore, this model assigns more indirect costs or overhead costs into the direct costs compared to the traditional costing method. Next, I will explain about the disadvantages of activity-based costing. The first disadvantage is activity-based costing will be of limited benefit if the overhead costs are primarily volume related or if the overhead is a small proportion of the overall cost. The second disadvantage is in activity-based costing, it is impossible to allocate all overhead costs to the specific activities. Next is the choice of both activities and cost drivers in activity-based costing might be inappropriate. The next disadvantage is activity-based costing can be more complex to explain to the stakeholders of the costing exercise compared to the traditional costing method. The next disadvantage is the benefits obtained from activity-based costing might not justify the cost. And finally, in activity-based costing, other systems may need to be changed, for example, how the variances are calculated. Now, I will be talking about the limitations of activity-based costing. The first limitation is activity-based costing will be of limited benefit if the overhead costs are primarily volume related or if the overhead is a small proportion of the overall cost. Since there are a lot of steps and groundwork required to come up with a costing based on this system, it is a very time-consuming method. The second limitation is, in activity-based costing, it is difficult to identify the overall activities that influence costs. It is impossible to allocate all overhead costs to specific activities, unless costs are originated by a real-time activity that is computable in quantitative terms and which can be related to production output. Cost drivers will not be working. The third limitation in activity-based costing is that it is difficult to select the most suitable cost drive. The benefits obtained from activity-based costing might not justify the cost. Before making any useful decision to be means of activity-based costing data, managers must identify which costs are really relevant for the decisions at hand. The next limitation is, in activity-based costing, it is difficult to evaluate costs on the basis of activities. The choice of both activities and cost drivers might be inappropriate. Activity-based costing data may be easily misinterpreted, and so it should be handled with care when used in making decisions. The next limitation in activity-based costing is that activity-based costing is not suitable for small manufacturing concerns. The level of technology and manufacturing environment prevailing in different firms also affect the application of activity-based costing. If the management is not thinking of using activity-based costing information, an absorption costing system may be a simpler option. And finally, Activity-based costing can be more complex to explain to the stakeholders of the costing exercise compared to the traditional costing method. Activity-based costing systems require management to estimate the cost of activity pools and to identify and measure cost drivers to serve as cost allocation basis. Some basis of cost allocation may be required at the cost pooling stage for certain items like rent, rates, and even building depreciation. In conclusion, activity-based costing produces more accurate costing of products by essentially converting broad indirect costs into direct cost of production. It determines the cost of the various sources of indirect costs and allocates these expenses to the specific activities that use them. Setting up an activity-based costing system is time-consuming and expensive to maintain, but it provides management with valuable information that can be used to improve the efficiency of processes and increase product profit. That is all for me. Thank you.
Okay, hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Najwa IZZAFIRAH binti ZAINON. My metric number is 280706. Okay, I would like to tell about the success and failure stories in implementing ABC costing in the company. So, let's enjoy it. Why ABC system have failed? Many companies heard about the wonders of activity-based costing and quickly tried to put the system into use at their company. Frustration and displeasure was generally the result, and the ABC backlash began. The authors explain the reason for failure are rather obvious. Companies receive results from their new costing system, but either would not or could not implement them. Organizations are simply resistant to change, whether because of internal or external barriers. Managers have difficulty applying the result to the company in order to improve their operation. Difficulties with implementation include, for the first one is there are too many or too few identified activities and the cost drivers in the company activities. The second one is overly complex system design. And the third one is the company use a reciprocal cost allocation. And the last one is the company is lack of technical expertise in the identification and analysis of the activities. There are a few steps to successfully implement ABCs in the company. A non-traditional view must be taken in order to understand how ABC will be effective. Perfect conditions and information does not exist. Therefore, a realistic approach must be grasped. Sufficient motivation and a practical change strategy must be present for success of the company. For example, high-volume companies have highly structured organizational forms that contain interdependent departments. ABC will best serve companies such as this, but because so many different units must be involved, change is nearly impossible unless total commitment is given. Certain factors are necessary to help ABC succeed no matter what company is involved. I will explain a few factors along with a short explanation as given in the slides. Okay, for the first one is interdependent environment. The environment should have a pre-existing process-oriented improvement program. A disposition towards internal change will help move the implementation along. For the second one is security. Employees will fear replacement if their unit is found to be unprofitable, but assurance that their job is safe and their assistance is necessary will help the change. For the third one is legitimacy. The senior operating management needs to lead the implementation to show the employees the commitment to their effort. And the fourth one is the critical timing. Users need timely reports in order for successful implementation. Moreover, the coordination and integration. The involving various departments in decision making will ease the implementation process. And the last one is the incentive alignment. The making incentive based on ABC information instead of traditional mean pushes personnel towards focusing on successful implementation. Lastly, as the conclusion, activity-based costing program require proper planning and a commitment from upper management. If possible, it is best to do a trial study or test run on a department whose profit-making performance is not living up to expectations. This type of situation have a greater chance of succeeding and showing those in charge that ABC is a viable way for the company to save money. If no costing saving measures are determined in this pilot study, either the activity-based costing system have been improperly implemented or it may not be right for the company. To implement the new informational management and budgeting systems like ABC in organization is inevitable. So, for many different reasons, the success is such system when they are implementing is not so much. Such reasons can be classified in the 5 following groups, including the data reason, technical weakness, the user denial, organization obstacles, and the others. The best solution to the problems existing for implementing ABC system is to train the employees and managers in a good way and to make them much more aware of the new system and also to introduce their advantages in the organization concerned. In general, to know the failure reasons for implementing ABC systems will lead to decrease and minimize the failure possibility. Such reasons can be predicted before, and when they are ignored, the new system will be failed. To reform this system, many financial and human sources will be destroyed. Being aware of the failure reasons, we can find the solution to remove the problems, and we can put new approaches to achieve success. Therefore, in such condition, organizations can enjoy advantages of ABC system and finally increase its value and they are profitable. That's all from me. Thank you.